So, still on the idea of structures and structure arrays, we've talked about thus far how to create structures by motivating this example with basketball players cards. And so what we've done is we've created a structure with two ways, what I call the direct, once again, the direct data entry method, which was creating this variable called player, and then dot the field, which was first name, equals Huey, and then we did player dot last name equals Freeman, player dot number equals 24, and player dot position equals string G. So that was the direct way, and then we came in here and used the other method, the group method, which was player equals the keyword struct, and then we did these field name data pairs. So we said field name equals first, data equals Huey, field name equals last, data equals Freeman. And then what we found when we ran out of space, which you do a lot doing structures, you put in these three dots, which are ellipse, and tells MATLAB that continue on the next line. So we do field name equals number. That was 24 for the data, and then field name equals position, and that's character G for the data, and I'm done. So those are the two ways we've defined it, and those are the two ways that are actually built into MATLAB. So that's what's built in. However, there are times you can make a lot of mistakes here if you had to do multiple data, which we'll do in a second when we create structure arrays. So it's very useful sometimes to create a function that you would give a cell array of the values, right? So if I had some function, and I'm going to create that in MATLAB here in a second. So I'm going to have a function called makePlayer, and makePlayer is actually going to take in a cell array of these values, right? And then it's going to assign those cell arrays to a structure. So it's going to take in a cell array and give back a structure, right? And the reason I do that is there's some practical reasons. A, it's faster if I had a whole lot of stuff to do than writing all this out. And also, what it allows me to do is make sure that I don't misspell these field names when I go through, because if I misspell a field name, then I create a new field and it will make my data confusing. So creating a function called makePlayer that will do this will sort of alleviate some human error. So let's look at that here. I wrote the code here, and I actually wrote the function over here. So let me bring that up. So this is the function makePlayer. You can see it takes in info, which is a cell array. And all it does is take that information, it's a cell array, and it accesses each cell, the contents of each cell, and it puts that in the data portion of this structure statement here. So the field name will be first, the information will be the first thing that's in that cell array. The field name will be last, the information will be the second thing in that cell array. The field name will be number, the information will be the third thing that's in that cell array. The field name will be position, and the information will be the fourth thing in that cell array. And so then it will return this structure. So it takes in a cell array, returns a structure, and now I never have to worry about misspelling, so I know that everything that I put in my structure array will have the same label names, and so when I go to access stuff, I don't have to worry about a misspelling that's corrupted my data in any way. So let's go back here to intro. So I just put that code there so we can look at it here. And so now I say player equals makePlayer. So the structure player is now going to equal the output of this makePlayer. Now you don't have to do this, this function thing, but but it does make it's a very good implementation of this. So when I do that, and I'm just going to run this so that you can see it here. When I do this, it works just as before. It creates a player becomes a structure one by one, and so therefore when you look at player, it has those fields, the same fields we had before, and then the values once again. First is Huey, the value second Freeman, the third thing the value first is Huey, last is Freeman, number is 24, and position is G. So this does the same thing as the other methods. It just uses a function to make things a little more standard. Okay. All right. So next up, as I have written here, move down the code. Next up, I motivate by saying, well, you know, that's cool, but what about the whole team like we did before? So we came up here, remember, and we actually put in the whole team as a cell array of cell arrays, right? And then we started this whole thing by saying that gets a little bit confusing when you're indexing stuff. So right now we've created a structure, so we've created one structure. Now what about creating these others and holding them all together, right? And so that's what we're going to do next. Now, one way to do this is there's sort of a second way to use our group entry. And the way it works is I still use struct and I still put in field name, but I can put in multiple values in each field name. And those multiple values will be in cell arrays. And so you see here, it's field name here, then cell array of all the field values. So if I wanted to come up here and put in the whole team, I could write team equals structure, which is just like before, the field name, which is just like before, which is first. But instead of just one name, Huey, I give it a cell array of all the first names, right? And then I use my ellipses over here, my dots, to take me to the next line. Keep in mind, this is all inside of the parentheses of structure. The ellipses just take me down to the next line because I don't have enough room out here. Continue on. Next is the field name last, and then a cell array of all the values I want to put in last. Right? And you can see from the roster up here, these are the names I want to put in there, in the right order that match the order of the first names I put in up here. Then I use the ellipses, go down here, and do number. That's the field name, and then all the numbers in the right order. Then I go to the next line, and then I do field name position, and then all the positions in the right order. And then I close this with the parenthesis, and then I put a semicolon here. In fact, let me not put a semicolon here. I want you to see what MATLAB is going to do. So let's run this, and then and check it out. Okay, so I'm going to run this, step through. So you see team becomes a 1x5 structure array with fields, and it tells me the field names, first, last, number, and position. Okay, so this is, because there are multiple values, it's no longer a structure, it is a structure array because there's more than one. Just like when we put we did a cell of cells. Now we're doing, this has more than one structure in it, so it's a structure array. Okay, and if you look over here, instead of it saying 1 by 1 in the workspace, it now says a 1 by 5. So team is a 1 by 5 of class structure. Okay, so I step through again. I access team on line 90. So I double that up. Here I access team of 2. So the second structure in here, it actually gives me, it is a structure whose value in the field entitled first is Riley. The value in the field entitled last is Freeman. The number is 13. The position is G. So this is the second. If we go back up here, this is the second structure in the structure array, and I access that by team2. Now if I want to get to Riley's first name, I say team2.first, and you notice that is not a cell Riley, that is the actual string Riley. So now if I just, now it's sort of easy. I don't have to remember that it's the third index, the first name is the first index, and last name is the second index, and then I have to do a whole bunch of things with my parentheses and my braces. I just say, give me the second player on the team and their first name. On line 93, I say, give me the second player on the team's last name, which is Freeman. And on line 94, give me the second player on the team's number, which is 13, and then give me the second player on the name, the second player on the team's position, and I get 90. I get G. So that is a lot, quote unquote, easier than trying to remember. And I'll scroll back up here to remind, than trying to remember all of this stuff here with, you know, do I access the cell? Do I access the contents of the cell? And what index is the information? What index is the information that I want to get? So that's the motivation of using these structures here, and they come in quite handy when you're holding information that is of this nature. Okay? So this is one way to do it. I could use the group entry field method. The other way to do it, which I insert down here, is, and this is why I went through the trouble of making the function, is you can use the function, and that makes this even a little bit cleaner. So if I go down here and use my function, so what I do here is I say the first member of the team equals make player, and then I give it the information. So I use the same function that I used up here in this example here. Right? Now I'm going to do this on each player. And so I say team 1, so I create this array, this vector of team members, and team member 1 is equal to the structure that comes out of this function with this information. So, and then I say team number 2 is a structure that comes out of this function with this information. And team player number 3 is a structure that comes out of this function with this information, and so on. And so I build it this way instead of the way I did up here, lines 86 through lines 89. And so just to show you that this does work, I step through here, and this will give me the same thing as before. It gives me team 1 is now team. If you go over here, team is a 1x1 with structures in it over here in the workspace. If I do it again, now I've added another structure, so team becomes a 1x2. Next line, line 100 executes. Now I've added another structure, so team is a 1x3. 101, I've added another structure, team's a 1x4. And 102, I've added another structure to the array team or the vector team, and it's a 1x5. And so now when I look at that information, just as I did up above, team is a 1x5 structure array with fields first, last, number, and position. And then if I access the second thing, I get the structure, which contains this information. And if I want the actual information, I do that particular structure of the second player dot first name is Riley, second name, last name is Freeman, number is 13, and position is G for guard. So two different ways, but the once again, the writing your function method prevents you. It helps to eliminate some human error. Although this way is perfectly feasible to use. The group entry, this extended here, is perfectly a good way to do it. However, the function way is also it looks a little bit cleaner a way to do this. So next up, we'll talk about library functions that you can use on structures.